You're listening to Inclusive AF with Jackye Clayton and Katee Van Horn.
Hello.
Hi, Katee. I'm excited today. Whoa.
I'm infusing this Friday with as much excitement as I can.
Loving that.
So this is Katee Van Horn.
This is Jackye Clayton. Would you like
that?
It
is. And this is the Inclusive AF podcast. So Jackye, it's Friday. You just got home.
Yes, from Seattle. I think I need to have a summer home in Seattle. This is like my 6th time this year to go to Seattle.
I would love for you to buy that home, and then I will go visit you at that home because
turns out, by the way, a little pricey. A little pricey.
Yes. Yeah, I don't know that. We'd have to maybe bring some funds together and get a few more folks to join in on that. Jackye, we have an amazing guest today. Dr. Raymona Lawrence is with us. And so Dr. Lawrence, would love for you to introduce yourself and share a little bit about your background.
Hey, well, I am excited to be here. What an exciting call already. So I am ready for this one. So I am Raymona Lawrence. My regular job is a professor. I'm a public health professor, actually. And so that's where the doctor part comes in. But I'm a speaker, I'm a coach, I'm a consultant, and I own a software as a service or systems as a service company. And I do diversity, equity, and inclusion training. And so a little bit about my background, I always tell people I am a Black woman from the Deep South. I was raised in a Christian home and my dad was a police officer. And so when you think about all of those different things and coming together and what has happened in the world recently, I really can see how my views have been shaped and how I am really kind of drawn towards inclusion and making sure that other people are inclusive and have that inclusive lens. And so, yes, I'm a public health professor. I have that background. I'm also, my first business was in network marketing. And so I really started to see that there were not a lot of women who looked like me at the top of the company. And that is how I moved into diversity, equity, and inclusion work a lot more deeply, because I was like, there is no way that there are not Black women who are working hard enough to get to the top of this company. So we need to figure this out. And so the intersection of my own personal background with my training within, public health, social justice, health inequities, all of that, with my experience in network marketing is what brought me to this place where now I am the founder and CEO of Dr. Raymona H Lawrence Coaching, where I do the diversity, equity, and inclusion work and also systems work with my clients. So that is a little bit about me.
Awesome.
I love that. That's all. You're right. When I put that in my head, there's a lot going on, there's a lot of pieces that go along with that. Thank you for sharing.
Yes.
So I would love to, where are you based now?
I live in Southeast Georgia, so near Savannah.
Okay. All right. So you still are in the Deep South. So that's good. That's good.
I am.
I love it. So what inspired you to get into this work? I know you just said, not seeing women of color at the top, but how did that translate into actually creating your own company and doing this work as kind of your life's work?
Yeah, I was always really drawn towards this work. Like I said, when I got my public health degree, this is how I was trained, right? To have this more inclusive lens and to make sure that everybody's perspective was brought to the table when we made decisions about health of the population. And so when I went into network marketing, they started to ask me to come and do diversity, equity, and inclusion training for the consultants. And so and I can't remember how, but they found out that I did this work. And so I did one training and then did many. So they would fly me all over the country and have me to come and do the training with consultants at different events that they were having. But one thing that I realized is that I had the knowledge and the talent and the gift to do this, but I only did it when they told me that I could. And being in that box was, it just was maddening to me because I had to be censored. I had to send the things that I was going to say, make sure that it was aligned with everything that the company and their beliefs and all of that. And sometimes you have to say things that people aren't comfortable with. And so having to censor, doing it only when they said that I could, and realizing that there was so much work to do, not only in the company that I was with, but in so many different companies. And so I said, you know what, this is a full-time job in itself. I'm going to start this work. And so that's what I did. And I've worked with other companies since, started doing coaching with individuals in network marketing. And so, yeah, that's how I started the process, is by being asked to do that with the company and then realizing that it was way bigger than that one company.
I want to dig into the public health piece. Because when I think about it, and we've talked about it on the program before, like, people don't recognize that people are treated differently, illnesses are treated differently, side effects are treated differently. We've talked about, like, a lot of these things are white men. As a woman of a certain age, I'm like, all of these things, as I'm in perimenopause, going into menopause, I'm like, I know a woman didn't create this process, because this is absolute torture. It was not a woman who's gone through menopause that said, oh, nobody needs pain relief, you'll be fine, as we stick things in you and prod you. But then also, it was very telling. At one point I went to my doctor, they were asking various questions, and they had asked if I had felt like I was in pain, because I should feel pain, because it's been in the last 5 years I've been in pain. And I was like, I don't even know what you were talking about. And they were like, given your lifestyle, you would never notice that you were in pain. That's what that feeling is, that you can't, that's making you not sleep. You're not tired, you're in pain. And I wanted to talk to you about if there were other things that you've seen, regarding public health, that has to do, especially with, like, as a Black woman, that you realize that isn't taught in the mainstream, that needs to be addressed.
Oh, there are so many.
I mean, but keep it down to like 100 or less.
And we only have 45 minutes, so if you can knock it out.
Yeah.
Oh, well, when you think about Black women, and just one thing that we really talk about is their birth outcomes. And no matter what level of education you have, no matter how fit you are, no matter how many doctor's appointments you've gone to, Black women have worse health outcomes when it comes to birth. We have more worse birth rates, different things that happen to women when they have babies. And so that's something that is huge in public health. There's a documentary called Unnatural Causes, and there's one that's called When the Bow Breaks, and thinking about what happens with Black women and these birth outcomes, and why there's so much worse, birth and health within babies, within Black women. But I think that there are so many different things that we come to our doctors with, just like what you were saying with the going into menopause, or just our health outcomes with our bodies, and people aren't listening. And that's the thing, is that when we want people that look like us to be able to treat us. And that's one reason, is because it's like, I feel like I'm banging my head against the wall. People are not listening when I'm saying that this is a symptom that I'm having. This is an outcome that I'm having. And so I think it's really important for us, one, to just listen and actually do something about it when Black women are talking. And so I think that's one of the biggest things that's going on in public health.
I'm glad. Thank you for sharing that. I agree with you. And
Mm-hmm.
it's around that work, just in diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging is
Mm-hmm.
of listening to people's truth and accepting their truth.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think the historical context of just, for whatever reason, not believing Black women when they say I'm in pain or I have this happening, and you just hear so many of these just horrific stories of, wait, you went to the hospital and they sent you home, like what? Like, and that would just never happen. And it is so, like, there is that piece where you go, this is just bananas, and how can this possibly happen? And it is happening over and over and over again. It is frustrating, and I am not living it. So I can only imagine.
And I would be remiss if I didn't talk about sickle cell disease, right?
Yes.
Because that is my research focus, right? I think about, things that are general, like birth outcomes with women. But when I think about the genetic disorder, sickle cell disease, and sickle cell disease is a genetic disorder that primarily affects African Americans, not only primarily it affects African Americans. And so when we think about this genetic disorder, even individuals with sickle cell disease are often treated worse than individuals who are African Americans who don't have sickle cell disease. And so we are having the disparity within the disparity, right? And so if you don't know what sickle cell is, let me just tell you real quick, because I know a listener may not know, but it's a genetic disorder. It's a recessive genetic disorder that happens when your parents, both of them, have a trait, and that trait will be some sort of sickle cell gene. And so when those people come together and they reproduce, and then you're born, then if you have the sickle genes, then a lot of times people have pain, there's organ damage, there's all kinds of things that happen within your body as a result of that genetic disorder. And so going into a hospital when you have a genetic disorder that primarily affects African Americans is automatically linked to stigma, where people are said to have drug addiction because of the extreme pain that happens when your cells sickle inside your body and you need pain medicine chronically. And so, I would definitely be remiss if I did not talk about sickle cell disease specifically, because a lot of people don't know about that particular genetic disorder that happens in the African American community and beyond, but primarily within the African American community.
Thank you for calling that out. And, I think it's a good reminder that we still have so much further to go in this work. I want to switch gears slightly and talk about, I saw that you have worked with Arbonne and Rodan Fields and some of these other, I don't know if they would be considered like beauty products, but, what was like, how did that go? What was that like? And, what were you helping them with? Whatever you can share, I guess I should say that before.
Yeah, so it's exactly what I was talking about in the beginning, is how do we help everybody to get to the top of this company? How do we look inside the company and see what's happening with the different consultants, whether they have different races, ethnicities, lifestyles, whatever it is? How do we make this a more inclusive process? And a lot of times companies aren't thinking about what they're doing. They're just like, oh, let's just put this product out. And so I help them to have a more inclusive lens and to look through the journey that a consultant or either a customer would go through. So for instance, if you are a company and you put some let's say suntan lotion out, right? Well, some communities, this is going to be a better product for them than it is for other communities. And so let's follow this through a 27-year-old white woman's community, and let's follow this through a 50-year-old Black woman's community. And what you say is everybody's got the same products. They've got the same 24 hours in a day. We've got the same compensation plan. Why are you not getting to the top? When we have these two things, we're giving everybody the same thing. Why aren't you making it? And so they aren't even thinking about some of these things and following these products or these processes through the customer journey. And so I go through and help them to, one, just understand diversity, equity, and inclusion, because when I say diversity, everybody thinks I'm just talking about race. They don't think about any other aspect of diversity except for race. And so we have to level set terms first. And then we go into, well, what's happening with your recruitment, your onboarding, your activity, the retention. And we look at the gaps and the things that are happening in the systems. And so it depends on where the company is. A lot of times it may be a general diversity, equity, and inclusion training, or it may be a little bit deeper where we really talk about what's happening here with your biases and recruitment, and you're trying to duplicate this system that works for middle-class white women with blonde hair, right? And so we have to really think about what are the things that need to be different to make sure that other people can get to the top too.
The pace of change in the world of business is fast, and that drives incredible complexity for the world of human resources.
Welcome to the HR Data Labs podcast, a series of conversations with experts inside and outside the world of HR on how to innovate, measure, and evolve our practices.
Our goal is to help provide you with practical examples of how HR has to change to meet the complexity of the business environment.
Every week, we'll talk to new and different voices on all aspects of HR.
And at times, we'll get irreverent.
Silly even.
And sometimes geek out on the data and technology that underlie the processes that drive the world of HR.
But the conversations are always insightful and fun. So please, enjoy the HR Data Labs podcast.
I appreciate you talking about products in particular. We were like this past week in Seattle when we were sitting outside and someone was like, oh, like, do you need sunscreen? And I didn't say out loud, but I was thinking, oh, I only use Black Girl sunscreen now because of the product in it. And I thought, that's a whole conversation that I don't want to have right now. Because when I tell people or they see it, and I always go to the pool and I'll see people, that aren't Black women, and I'll be like, oh, you need Black Girl sunscreen. Like that woman has this big white film all over them. And it's like, you need Black Girl sunscreen. So you don't look like that. But I think it is important in products. And so often in the products, in the marketing, you don't see people that look like us, or it's just slapped on there and this product doesn't work the same way in colors. And I think I was well into my 30s before I realized, like, oh, that eyeshadow is not going to look like that on me, or that lipstick doesn't look like that on me. And I find that interesting. But then network marketing in particular, because you're networking with your community, with your friends, and at some point you've tapped out or you've bought into other people's networks that maybe you weren't initially a part of. I would be curious as to what challenges that you see on a more regular basis when you're in that space.
Yeah, and one thing that you said was really interesting is that when people are networking with their own communities, a lot of times, if you see how teams are formed, if the individuals who are white just network with their communities, then they can make it. They're fine. They don't ever have to talk to people that are outside of their communities. But a lot of times when Black individuals or BIPOC individuals just network with their communities, it's not the same, right? And so it's like, okay, get out of your community, get out of the box, go and talk to someone else. But the white people aren't having to do that, right? They're not having to say, oh, let me go and expand my network more outside of my comfort zone as it relates to race, right? So let me clarify that. And so it can be a little bit difficult to go just expand in the network when you have to go through another barrier, right? That other people don't always have to. And so that's one of the things. And another thing that I see is that what is happening in these organizations is that they're recruiting for diversity, but they're onboarding for conformity. So what's happening is, yes, we tell people, come on in. We want diversity. We want you to be able to thrive. Everybody can make it. But then when we onboard, we say, here's the recipe that you have to have. And this is exactly how it has to be. And so when you think about like your grandma who was, back working in her kitchen, she would make something and she would throw a little bit of spice. She would do different things. And she knew how to cook and how to make sure you ate, right? She didn't follow a recipe because she didn't know if she was going to have the same exact ingredients in another kitchen, right? So she wasn't going to say, I have to do it this way. She said, you need this type of spice. So what's happening in these companies is that they're giving people recipes and they say it can only happen this way, right? So do it like this. This is the way that I want it duplicated. It's got to work like this. Instead of saying you need a spice in step one, whatever spice like you like, put that in, right? Here's step two. You need this butter. If you want vegan butter, if you want this butter, it doesn't matter. Put in some type of butter, right? So they're not giving frameworks, they're giving recipes. And then when a person takes that recipe to their community and it doesn't work, then it's like, why does this not work for you? You didn't follow the recipe. Well, yes, I did, but I didn't have that ingredient in my community. Does that make sense? And so that's a big issue that I'm seeing happening, is that they're trying to do these cookie cutter types of things, these copy and paste messages that don't work across communities. So they've got to broaden it and give people frameworks and say, however this works for your community, this is what you need to do. You need to present, but do it in your way, right? And so that's some of the really big issues that I'm seeing.
And I think it goes back to what you started this conversation with. When you don't have those leaders at the top, they can talk about bring your own spice. Here's the framework, but do it your way that makes sense for the people that you're targeting, or, whatever it might be. I think that's the piece that holds folks back. I did Pampered Chef for a while. I sold Pampered Chef for a while. It's same thing. And I was like, I'm not, the Becky Homecki, let me, bake something for you, but I love to cook and I love to do things my way. And here are the tools I like, but I did not do well because it was here's the words you need to say when you're standing in front of folks. That's not my jam. That's not, I don't do well with the script. So absolutely, you got to make sure it makes sense for the person and to make sure it makes sense for the folks that they are trying to sell to. So I want to talk to you. I want to ask you about this whole concept of, software services as a system. So kind of that SaaS model, if you will. Talk a little bit about that and kind of how you approach that, how you think about that.
Yeah. So I always start everybody with this idea of ROAR. And I just talked about it a little bit without saying the acronym. And so I'll tell you what it means. And so ROAR is a framework that I take people through to make sure that they have set up their business processes properly. And so we look at recruitment, onboarding, activity, and the retention. So I named it ROAR in the first place because I was doing all of this diversity, equity, and inclusion training. And I would say, stand up, speak up for people, make sure that you speak out. And I realized that a lot of people could not even speak up for themselves, much less speaking for somebody else, right? And so I said, ROAR. We need people to get their voice, be able to speak out about diversity and inclusion. And so that's kind of the overarching reason for the name. And then breaking down the ROAR was the recruitment, onboarding, activity, and retention. So when I think about systems and I think about, the issues with diversity and inclusion, that is systems issues. When you think about businesses and why people aren't getting to the top of companies, it's a systems issue. And so my thought is, what do I need to fix in the system? So typically when I look at a business, I know that there's going to be something going on with recruitment, onboarding, their activity, or retention. There's a break somewhere if there is a problem in your system with people getting to the top or people staying into that system. And so basically, I take people through the steps to audit their recruitment, onboarding, activity, or retention. And so we look everywhere from their lead generation. What are the things that they're doing that may be causing biases in recruitment? All the way up to here we are at retention, and we need to make sure that our clients or either our team members have been included. They're happy. They are doing the things that they need to do to be successful. So I take people through those 9 stages and say, how do we develop your systems in each one of these categories, the recruitment, the onboarding, the activity, and retention. So once people understand that and they understand the breaks, and we look onto all of those things with a diversity and inclusion lens, and we say, where are you not being inclusive? What's happening with these processes? Once they get all of that kind of situated, then I automate it. And so in the system, that system is iEngageU, and it is a platform that has everything that a business owner could possibly need in their back end. And so if they need to do email marketing, they need to do conversations, they need to do social media, they need their website, their blog, their membership, all of that is within this one platform. And I was looking for something that would level the playing field for people. And when you think about coaching and you think about going into the space where you have different coaches that are saying, you need this app, you need this app, you need this app, it gets extremely expensive. And people are like, I can't even afford to start my business. And then they just fail. And so I said, I need something that has all of that in one place to give business owners their back end of everything that they could possibly need in the business that aligns with this ROAR framework, so that then they're able to handle it. Right. And a lot of times people are overwhelmed. They're working another job. They're trying to just manage it all. And so that's where the system comes in. And so I don't want to just give people coaching and say, here's what you should do, and now buy all these apps. When I give them the coaching, then they can automate it in that system and it can do everything that they need. And so again, I call it iEngageU. And so that is the name of the system, and they go in and they have that full back end set up.
What I love about the Workforce Agility Limited Series by Cornerstone was we talked to executives and customers all about skills. Cornerstone has a wonderful background in learning and development, training, etc. Their LMS is world class, but they've centered the business now, not just on that, like building upon that, but building upon how everything has moved to the skills economy. So check out the limited series called Workforce Agility, and you can get it wherever you get your podcast. And it's just a wonderful series where we talk to their executives on the shift of why, and also their customers that are using it. So check it out whenever you get a chance. Appreciate it.
I know a lot of people need that. So it's like, wait a minute, that's a lot. I want to know more about that. I'm like, wait. Yeah. Because there are so many pieces, and changing the system and then trying to support people after you make that change to make it consistent is tough. I think it's one of the harder aspects of this kind of work.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's the thing, is that it's been so many things that have been disjointed. And a lot of times business owners are like, I'm here and I'm setting up this diversity and inclusion environment. I'm wanting things to be equitable for them. And I set it up, and then I'm saying, okay, come in and let's work and be prepared for the global marketplace. And it's like, oh, I don't have the systems I need to thrive in this environment that you just opened up for me. And so I was like, I've got to do something different. I've got to open the environment for people, and then I've got to equip them to play the game, right? So you got to have the things that you need when you go into the new inclusive environment that's there, that's set, and that's ready for you. And so in order to take the seat at the table, you've got to have your systems together in business as well. So what my systems do is merge that. It's like, I'm going to look at diversity and inclusion, but I'm also preparing you so that you have your back end systems, and that banks are going to listen to you, that your customers are going to listen to you, and that you have what you need to be able to thrive. So there's no reason to put people in the environment if you don't equip them with what they need to be successful. We're not trying to get you to say, aha, yeah, you didn't have what you needed. That's the issue, right? We don't want to do that. We want to equip people when we open the door and make sure they can thrive when they get in.
It's interesting. We just had a conversation with a very, very dynamic business owner. And, and I think that was one of the things that, even starting my own business and listening to her story, it is that the systems and the things that you're not even aware of, the things that you don't know are going to be a challenge. And so any type of support, like, I'll just, I'll share my own journey. It was like the setting up a business, and actually, having the LLC, knowing what to do with taxes, all of these things, and to have some sort of tool that tells you about that stuff. But then also with that inclusive framework and thought process, when you're thinking about marketing, when you're thinking about who are you reaching out to, who are those leads for you, all of those things, like, it would just be a huge resource, I think, for anyone that is an entrepreneur or that is looking at how do they approach some of these steps, because that's the scariest part. And especially, we all know this, being a business owner, and, those kind of, even throughout one day, you can have these, dips and highs that are so intense, and that it is like anything that you can do to support and help the folks that are living that every single day is huge. So I love it. I love this concept.
Absolutely. And that's the reason that I did this. It's just, there's so many unwritten rules of business that nobody talks about. And then, people of color often don't get access to those rules as readily as other people do. And I'm like, no, I'm figuring this out, and I'm going to tell people, I'm going to announce it and shout it from the rooftops, because I think that it's so important, not only for people of color, but that's the work that I do, right? I do diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so I'm really concerned that when we're thinking about how do we build our communities, how do we build our financial systems, that should come from within. It shouldn't be that we need to go out and get that from someone else all the time. This is something that we are very talented people, and we can do it. And it's just that we need the resources, and we need the education, and somebody who is not trying to hide it. But how do you just shout it out and say, this is what you need? It's enough for everybody. Go get it, right? And I'm going to support you in getting it. Yeah.
I think I think one of the things is that we were like in touching in this is that there is a grand assumption that everybody has the same 24 hours in a day. Everybody has that same opportunity in talking about that. Like, everyone has that same access. And, more recently, it was my birthday. My husband and I went to this spa, and that we were talking about all the other things. And it was like, there are people who don't even know that this world exists at all. They don't know and wouldn't know how to act once they got to a certain space. And you don't realize that a lot of the lessons are coming. You have passed down lessons. And so if you have this going on generationally, you might not have ever gotten those same lessons. And and depending on your community, like you're saying, your friends, if you go to church or where you worship, all of these different things that have that aspect, it's important to have a place where, because if you don't have those access, you don't know that the system that you were taught as true is broken. And who's helping you push through those things. And there's so many broken systems, just like we were, kind of alluding to.
Yeah, so many broken systems. And that's the thing that I say in my business. What my mission is to challenge broken systems that keep people from reaching their highest potential, because I think that there are so many. There's the issues with diversity and inclusion. There's the issues with what's happening in healthcare that we started this conversation with. There's issues with just what people are doing in the back end of their business, that they see other people that are posting on social media, but they have no clue all of the things that are behind that one social media post that somebody's doing, and they're wondering why they're not succeeding. And it's because they don't have the knowledge of the system, right? And so when you don't understand systems and you don't understand where those systems can be broken, then you are in a world of trouble. And we have somewhere to go for every type of system. If we have a broken bone, we're not going to let it stay broken. We go and fix the system because the skeletal system is not working. If something's happening with our heart, we go and fix it if we feel our heartbeat skipping or something like that. And so it's so important with any system that we go and figure out, who is it that I need to go to help to fix this? And with diversity and inclusion, often people feel like they're just stuck and they're like, I don't know what to do. I'm not doing anything. And I always tell people, figure out what your area of disruption is. That's what you need to do. So it's not that you have to do everything. When people think about diversity and inclusion, they think about, I've got to go out to the corner and get a sign and stand on the corner now to march, right? And that is not everybody's area of disruption, right? So it needs to be like, okay, I'm figuring out what I need to be educated about. I'm figuring out what I can do in my home with teaching my children, or what I can do in my workplace to make it more inclusive for other people. That's where your area of disruption is. Sometimes it's not with everything and at every level. And so if we can just figure that out and figure out what part of the system we want to work on and that we are called to work on, then I think that people will be less stagnant about this and not so afraid to just take a step and take action.
Well, and it's actually bringing to mind something that, I think is also related to this. So I don't know if you know Arlen Hamilton and, some of the other investors that are focusing on people of color and focusing on how do we get funding for businesses, things along those lines. And I think that's also been something that has been missing. And it is that I don't even know where to start, and I don't know where I can go, or I'm going in front of these investors and it's, a group of white men and they don't even get what I'm trying to put across, or what I'm trying to sell, or what I'm trying to ask them to invest in, and that type of thing. And so it is, being able to look at whatever the tool is, whatever the thing is that they're trying to sell, and figure out what is that right space? What are the right things? How do we sell this? What are those different places to go? So I love that you're doing this, because I think it's just such there is a hole, and this is what you can do to kind of fill that need and fill that, which is such a huge piece to how do we start to build generational wealth, build out different things that just have not been there, and even create awareness of, Jackye, to your point, people don't even know these things exist, or haven't had the exposure to them, so they just don't know. And so how do we continue to build that out? So thank you for that work. That's amazing. So the other question that I had for you, the other thing that I kind of want to dig in on is, you talked a little bit about training, but you also talked about, this framework that you have of the ROAR system and looking at things. So when you are working with organizations, where do you start, and where do you, how do you think about new partnerships, new clients, that type of thing? Where do you start with them?
So with anybody that I'm working with, I'm always going to start with the individual and look at and help them to see themselves. Because if you don't see yourself in the bigger picture and you don't understand your own lens, then nothing else is going to work, because all organizations, all leaders are made of individuals. And I help them to understand, where is it that you're coming from? And then how is that affecting what you're doing as you're moving forward? Typically, I also would give someone the like an assessment, right? Because I need to know where they are on the continuum. And so I need to ensure that they are at a place where they can start to do this work. So if you are low, and what I do is the intercultural development inventory, the IDI. So if I'm doing the IDI and I find that you're way down into denial or polarization or something else, then I'm going to say, okay, this is what we might need to do. You might need to get to a point where you understand that there are differences and that everybody is not the same, and that we need to do things differently sometimes. If they're not even at that point, then there's no reason for me to continue to move forward, right? And not necessarily not continue to move forward, but I need a different plan of action based on where they are. And so if they're a little higher on the continuum, then we just know where they are. We develop a plan so that we can continue to move them up to a place of adaptation where they can actually change their behavior and work with people of different cultures. So we look at that. And once you know you and your this particular assessment can be done for an organization too. So we can know where the whole organization is on the continuum. So once we figure that out, then we can say, okay, here's what's possibly happening with your recruitment. Let's dig down in. What are your processes? What are your standard operating procedures? I don't know why I'm blah, blah, blah today. your SOPs, and then what are the different policies that you have? What are the different things that you're doing to ensure that you're moving people through the pipeline in your organization? So we look within those, see if we see anything that's blaring, give them a plan to mitigate that based on where they are on that continuum. That would be for a larger company. We would do something pretty much the same for a team or a smaller organization, but it wouldn't probably be deep into policies and things like that. When you're thinking about a network marketing team, normally they have their onboarding that they do, and they tell you how they recruit, and we look at the workflow of that and what's happening, and then adjust that so that we can make it more inclusive and make sure that they have best practices in place. And then once they have best practices, then we do the automation piece.
Awesome. Well, I would love to continue this conversation for the rest of the day, but alas, we are at time. But Dr. Lawrence, I would love for you to share, and we'll go around the room here. Would love for you to share, what are one or two things that you would like our audience to take away from this conversation? What are the things that you think are really critical that they need to know? And Jackye and I will also respond.
Okay. So the first thing is that what I talked about your own reflection, and absolutely knowing where you are, why you believe the things that you do. So that individual reflection. The second thing is then, after you do that reflection, to really think about determining your area of disruption. That is important, because if you just reflect and you don't act, then we're not going to get anywhere, right? And then when you're thinking about your team, just remember, when you're thinking about your team, your company, that a lot of different people can be in the same room, but they can have totally different experiences. They can be on the same Zoom and have totally different experiences. And so it's important to follow the journey of a team member or of a customer before you start doing something. Or if you are looking at your policies now, look at recruitment, onboarding, the activity, and retention, and follow that through different journeys. And then you'll be able to see if there are any breaks in the system that are keeping people from reaching their highest potential. So that's mine.
Awesome. Thank you. Jackye, what you got?
I like the spice. Like, what spice do you have and what spice do you need?
Yeah.
I like that. There's so many times where it's like like you're saying, even if you follow the recipe and it's too much for me, it could be too much for me at that moment or not enough. Like I can't tell what's going on. What kind of experience am I supposed to be having here? So I like that analogy of the spice, especially, I think.
Awesome. And I think for me, it's the whole idea, and it's something that we talk about so often in this space. Not everyone's experience is the same, and being able to really understand where are people coming from, what do they need to be successful, what tools will be helpful, all of those pieces, how you can springboard that into success and achieving your goals and all of these things. And I think that there can't be a cookie cutter model for everyone that will actually drive success for everyone. You have to really be looking at the individuals, as you said, holding up that mirror, helping them really look at who they are to be able to give them the right tools, the right, whatever it is that they need to be able to roar.
Love it.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate you taking the time to chat with Jackye and I today. This has been great. And, we really appreciate you taking the time. This is Katee Van Horn.
And this is Jackye Clayton. Bye.